Hello students, today we'll be learning about human endocrine system, our body's secret communication network. What is endocrine system? How do we define endocrine system? When we talk about endocrine system, we'll say that endocrine system is the organ system that is mainly responsible for secreting hormones, only for hormones, right? Yes. So endocrine system is the organ system that consists of glands. Endocrine system consists of glands to secrete certain chemical substances. They are produced in trace amounts. That chemical substances are known as hormones. Okay. Endocrine system consists of glands that secrete hormones. And what do hormones do? Hormones regulate the physiological processes in your body. Hormones regulate the physiological processes. Think about all physiological processes occur in our body, like growth, reproduction, respiration, digestion. All the physiological processes are regulated by hormones. So we can say that hormones are the mediators. They are the mediators. That means endocrine system communicate to our body with the help of hormones. Or we can say that the endocrine system contribute to homeostasis by regulating the activity of target cell in your body. What is homeostasis? Maintenance of internal environment in a constant level. That is homeostasis, right? So the endocrine system contribute to homeostasis by regulating the activity of target cell. There will be a target cell upon which each hormone acts, that you will study. Okay. And this is done by releasing mediators. What kind of mediators? Hormones. And when we talk about glands, we have to mention two types of glands. You might have studied the two types of glands, like exocrine glands and endocrine glands. Exocrine glands are ducted glands and endocrine glands are ductless glands. What is the difference between ducted glands and ductless glands? Ducted glands will have ducts to carry their secretions, but ductless glands don't have any ducts to carry their secretions. Alright, that's the difference between ducted glands and ductless glands. Endocrine glands are ductless. That means they do not have any ducts. They do not have ducts to carry their secretions. Instead, their secretions are carried by blood. Okay. See, this is endocrine gland and these are the hormone secreting cells. Okay, these are the hormone secreting cells. These cells secrete hormones and the hormones are directly released into the blood. As you can see in the diagram, the hormones are released into the blood, and blood is the medium of transport of hormones in the case of endocrine glands. But in the case of exocrine glands, they are ducted glands. They are ducted, right? Ducted glands. They have ducts to carry their secretions. As you can see in the diagram, these are the exocrine cells. They secrete the secretions. The secretions are carried by a duct. This is the duct, not the blood. This is not blood, this is the duct to carry the secretions of exocrine glands. Okay, but in the case of endocrine glands, their secretions are directly released in the blood, and blood is a medium of transport. Through the blood, the secretions of endocrine glands reach the target site. And what are the examples of endocrine glands? You can mention pituitary gland, pituitary, thyroid. So many glands you will study in this chapter. And what are the examples of exocrine glands? Examples: salivary gland, an exocrine gland. It secretes saliva, right? Then sweat gland, gastric gland, sebaceous gland. So we know that endocrine gland secretions are hormones, but exocrine gland secretions are not hormones. They are some other things, like they can be fluids, enzymes, salts, nitrogenous wastes, etc. For example, salivary gland secretes saliva. It's a fluid that consists of enzymes to digest food, right? Okay. Ductless glands, the glands that secrete hormones directly into blood because they don't have ducts to carry their secretions. So the glands can be either ductless or ducted, but there is an exception, that is pancreas. Pancreas is the heterocrine gland. Heterocrine means mixed gland. That means it consists of both exocrine and endocrine parts. Okay, see, this is the exocrine cells of pancreas and these are the endocrine cells of pancreas. Okay, I'm going to label this. This is the endocrine part. The endocrine cells of pancreas is called islets of Langerhans. You might have studied, right? Islets of Langerhans. And islets of Langerhans cells secrete hormones. So endocrine part of pancreas secrete hormones and the endocrine cells are called islets of Langerhans. Islets of Langerhans consist of two types of cells. You might have studied two types of cells, alpha cells and beta cells, right? Alpha cells secrete glucagon and beta cells secrete insulin, right? So this is the hormone secreting part of pancreas, endocrine part, that is called islets of Langerhans, that consist of two types of cells, alpha cells and beta cells. Alpha cells secrete glucagon and beta cells secrete insulin. Understood? Now see the exocrine part. This is the exocrine part of pancreas. The exocrine part of pancreas is called pancreatic acini. Pancreatic acini, or it consists of acinar cells. Exocrine part consists of acinar cells that secrete the digestive juice, that consists of digestive enzymes. Okay, so endocrine part of pancreas secrete hormones, but the exocrine part of pancreas secrete digestive enzymes. You understood? That's why pancreas is known as heterocrine gland or mixed gland. It has both exocrine activity and endocrine activity. Now let us define hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers, not the point. They are chemical messengers that regulate the physiological processes in living organisms. Okay, and they act upon specific cells or tissues or organs which are called target cells or target tissues or target organs. Now let us see the secretions of the endocrine system. The secretions of the endocrine system can be of four types: autocrine, paracrine, endocrine and exocrine. In autocrine secretion, hormones act on the same cell that secreted them. See, if this is a hormone secreting cell, this is a hormone secreting cell. What is this? It secretes hormones. Okay. And instead of going to other areas, other regions, what the hormones will do? The hormones will bind to the same cell. Okay. That means the same cell will have certain receptors to receive the hormones. So the hormones will bind to the receptors on the same cell this way. Okay, hormones act on the same cell that secreted them. That is autocrine secretion. Paracrine secretion, hormones act on the neighboring cell. See, if this is the hormone secreting cell, this cell secrete the hormones and the hormones act on the adjacent cell, neighboring cell, nearby cell. Okay, and you know that the space in between the cells is called interstitial space, right? So there will be a fluid in the interstitial space that is called interstitial fluid. Okay, the space in between the cells is called interstitial space and the fluid present in the interstitial space is called interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid. See, this cell secrete hormones into the interstitial fluid and the hormones act on the adjacent cell, neighboring cell. This is paracrine secretion. Okay, next one is endocrine secretion. That we know, hormones secreted into the interstitial fluid and then into blood. Okay, see, if this is the cell secreting hormones, this cell is secreting hormones. Okay, like this, into the interstitial fluid. Okay, this is interstitial fluid. The fluid in between the cells or fluid surrounding the cells. Okay, hormones are released into the interstitial fluid and from there the hormone is carried by blood. Okay, that should be in red color. See, like this, Now hormones are carried by the blood. Okay, see, from the cell to the interstitial fluid, and from the interstitial fluid to the blood capillary, okay, to the blood and to the target cell. In this case, the target area, the target cell will be far away from the production site. The production site will be somewhere else, and the target area, the specific area on which the hormone acts, will be far away. That is endocrine secretion. And in exocrine secretion, when we define exocrine secretion is specifically applied to exocrine glands. Only exocrine glands secrete exocrine secretions, and exocrine secretions are not hormones. Exocrine secretions are some other substances like some fluids, enzymes, etc., etc., right? Not hormones. But exocrine secretions can contain some hormones. Since the exocrine secretions are carried by ducts, if they contain hormones, hormones also travel by ducts. For example, saliva. Salivary gland secretes saliva, and saliva carried through the salivary ducts, right? Salivary ducts are there. And there are some hormones in saliva. When you refer the hormones of the saliva or hormones of the other exocrine secretions, you will get a lot of hormones, okay? So these hormones also traveled along with the exocrine secretions through the ducts. Understood? Hormones along with other major components are secreted into ducts that carry them into target organs. So we have seen 4 types of endocrine secretions. First one is autocrine secretion. In autocrine secretion, the hormones act upon the same cell that secreted them. Second one, paracrine. In this case, hormones act upon the adjacent cell. Third one, endocrine secretion. That is the main secretion, right? In this case, the cell secretes the hormones into the interstitial fluid, from where it is carried through the blood capillaries, through the blood to the target site. The target site will be far away from the production site. Okay. Then exocrine secretion. Hormones can be released along with the major components of the exocrine glands. Okay. But exocrine gland secretions are not hormones, their secretions are some other substances. And exocrine secretions can be of 3 types, like merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine. Let us see the first one, merocrine secretion. Salivary glands and some sweat glands are the examples of merocrine gland. In this case, the gland secrete the products. So this is the cell that secrete the products without damaging the cell. This cell secrete the products via exocytosis. Exocytosis without damaging the cell. Okay, that is merocrine secretion. In apocrine secretion, mammary gland is the best example. In this case, when the cell is secreting the products, the top of the cell is lost. See, the cell secretes the products. Okay, when the cell secretes the products, the top of the cell is lost. That means there is little damage to the cell. The last one is holocrine secretion. Sebaceous glands are the best examples of holocrine glands. As you can see in the diagram, while secreting the products, the cell is completely damaged, right? Cell disintegrates while secreting the products. Okay, so we have seen 3 types of exocrine secretions: merocrine, apocrine, and holocrine. In merocrine secretion, there is no damage to the cell, right? But in apocrine secretion, little damage to the cell. Cell top is lost. And in holocrine secretion, complete damage to the cell, right? Let us see the 2 definitions of hormones. One is classical definition and the other one is modern definition. As per classical definition, hormones are chemicals produced by endocrine glands and released into the bloodstream. We know that, right? And transported to a distantly located target organs. The target area will be far away from the production site, isn't it? That is the classical definition. And the modern definition of hormones is they are non-nutrient chemicals which act as intercellular messengers. That means for cell-cell communication. Intercellular messengers and are produced in trace amounts, little amounts. Okay, this is enough for today's class. In the next class, we'll learn about endocrine glands, different endocrine glands of our body. Thank you.